Fuck.
It's a warehouse.
Hello, everyone. We're getting a tour through Ersin's apartment. No, let's see that. Let's see where you are.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the plants. This is Jeffrey.
Oh. Hey, Jeffrey.
Yeah, Lucy is looking after those. This is Jack. This is Newman. It's named after Paul Newman.
Perfect. Of course.
And this one is dying, so I don't know what to call. Maybe Princess Diana, but that's too intense.
Dark.
So, yeah.
Well, welcome everyone to today's edition of the forum. I'm especially excited about this one. Ersin Han Ersin, the man with two first names, is our guest today. I am, of course, your host, Renee Pinnell, CEO, founder, designer of Kaleidoscope, a professional network for the immersive industry. And as I just mentioned, we have Ersin on today, who is one of the principals at Marshmallow Laser Feast. Marshmallow Laser Feast is easily my top 5 favorite immersive studio. They've done amazing work like In the Eyes of the Animal, Tree Hugger, Sweet Dreams. And Ersin is going to tell us a bit about himself and his studio and what they're working on, and his philosophy on life and the meaning of life and all the mysteries. We're going to get to all of that. So Ersin, welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is really exciting. It's great to do interviews in the comfort of my house, first of all. This is really exciting also. I'm loving this because just started to feel the whole flight guilt and flying around and doing some, public engagements, talks and all those things. But now I think it's time for us to embrace those technologies even more. I mean, it's 2019 and I'm still talking about Skype, but
well, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because this is a thing that I have realized myself over the last number of years, because Kaleidoscope is a remote company. I do almost all of my business through video chat, and I find video chat to actually be a highly underutilized thing. I really love it, which is part of the reason that I do these, is just because I was like, hey, I do all these interesting video chats with people just, in the course of my day-to-day business. Why don't I record them and get a little extra value out of it?
I mean, totally. I do still understand sometimes people want to do it face-to-face, and I've been reading those like Forbes 500 people, they switch to 15-minute face-to-face meetings rather than asymmetrical way of communicating with each other, which is relatively difficult to get the stuff done. But when it comes to actually being somewhere, I think video can do quite a good job.
Yeah,
I think
well, the next step is we need to do this in VR, of course. I've been looking for the right app. There's certainly a lot of them out there, but I haven't found the one that I feel like great enough about to like really commit to like it being the platform that we like gather around. Half and half. I don't know if you've had a chance. It just dropped last week. Max's piece, it's fucking awesome. Love it, but you can only have 4 people in at a time, so it doesn't really make sense for a community. But yeah, it's so good. Really good. You need to check it out.
I mean, it would be incredible to integrate, the Slack, the Google Drive, the Dropbox, and Keynote at the same time to a fully present space. That would be incredible.
Yeah. I know a couple of people that are working on it. Actually, one that's on the line, Johnny, I think. Let's see, is he here? Yeah, they're working on exactly what we just described. So I think we have something on the books actually with Johnny to do a demo to kick the tires. But anyways, I digress. The way this is supposed to work is you're supposed to give us a quick summary of who you are, and then I know you've have a slide presentation thing to go into more detail, which I always love. So yeah, why don't you just tell us real quickly in your own words who you are, what you do, and then we can dive into your presentation.
Of course. So as you said, I'm Ersin Han Ersin with 2 names. Really lazy parents. They didn't even bother to find the name. So they went with the surname, and it's my real name. So I'm an artist and creative director of London-based studio Marshmallow Laser Feast. Our studio known for weird and semi-interesting installations that are embracing science and technology, and some have creating work that audience can only engage in kind of as a time-based medium, or often time-based medium. So, and in our little studio, we kind of embrace that model of, you know, keep the ship small, expand when the project's confirmed, but then scale down to the core of it. So me and my two other partners, Barney and Robin, we are kind of running the operations day to day, well, creative operations, because Nell and Mike is actually running the actual operations. And so the way we work often, somehow finding those concepts, looking into nature and trying to understand relatively simple things like how oxygen works, and, you know, how a tree can suck water, and how does this mosquito see the forest, and then try to find commissioners with money, basically, to give us some money to realize those projects. Luckily, we managed to do a handful of those so far, so it's kind of working, but it's tough. So I've got some slides to take you through the journey of some of the projects that we hold dear, and we were able to, or lucky to, kind of found those opportunities to dig deep into some of the topics. So I'm going to show some of those, which will give probably more and more idea about what we're up to and what we've been doing.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
You're welcome. So let me share my screen. Excellent.
Doing the share screen dance.
Here we go. Boom. Can you see my screen?
I can, and it's nice and big too.
Excellent. So, I mean, I'm going to start with this. This is one of my favorites because, you know, we often talk about how do we combine virtual and, you know, physical, and this one image describes that quite well, because, you know, creating those virtual environments and somehow manifesting them in real world and finding sensible interactions within that is what we do, what we think daily basis. And we've got two horses. One of those horses running for kind of semi-commercial jobs, not every commercial, but, you know, sometimes an institution or a brand wants to engage with us, for us to do something in the way that we do for their campaigns or engagements. And the other one is the self-initiated projects, which means we have to earn money or, you know, get commissions to execute. Actually, one horse is Pony, the commission horse. I mean, as you can imagine. Sorry. And then I can jump into this. Here we go. This image I really like because so this is from 1821, and you know, horses galloping. It's a painting by Theodore Garicole. And as you can see, all four legs just stretch out, kind of exaggerated motion to give the sense of speed. But the funny thing is, by this point, by 1820s, we were already living with horses for about like 40,000 years. We domesticated them 5,000 years ago. So we've been looking at horses for a long time by this point, and still consider that they were running like this. And then Muybridge comes and invents chronophotography and takes, you know, he takes these series of images, the horse in motion, 1878. And we realize actually they never leave they never leave 4 feet in the air. So they always 1 foot is touching the ground. So it's like, or even if they do, it's almost like bend into towards kind of each other. So this is quite fascinating, because what I saw in those two images, when I look at it, it's like incredible. It has always been there, and we are yet to see till an invention and innovation come into play to use an artistic context to show us something that was always there but we were not seeing it. So
yeah,
the way
I remember that
yeah.
the next one, the early motion tests of a horse. I was actually at the Eastman Kodak Museum, and they had this on display. And I remember reading that this whole thing was based on a bet. Do you remember that? It was like a gentleman's bet about whether or not a horse's hooves like left the ground, and some rich asshole like commissioned the scientist to like go film it just to prove a bet.
That's amazing.
Which it's kind of back to like your first image of like the guy riding the two horses. There's it is that kind of like commercial. You gotta be the muscle dude riding two horses. Make the rich people give you money to do weird art stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know. This is a great anecdote. I'll be telling this after this talk. That's great. But basically, the way I see technology and the way it serves us is quite similar to this. It's not the main tool. It's nothing by itself. It's a lens. It allows us to see a world beyond the limits of our senses from a completely new perspective. So when I think about virtual reality and augmented reality within the context of art and our studio, I always remind myself that, and one of the first kind of almost checklist question, can you do this in real world, in real life? Then don't do it in VR. And then it kind of extrapolates from there to the actual ideation phase. And, when we think about AR and VR, probably AR is coming relatively slowly, as you all know. But when we think about, alphabet, when we think about cooking or sewing, clothing, they all are actually pieces of technologies. They all are machines in one way. And some have ingrained in our lives so well that we don't think those things as technologies. So it will get to a point where AR becomes the new norm and it blends completely. VR probably will be more accepted though.
It's so weird what we call technology. It really is just like a time lens, because like almost everything that we touch is a form of technology that we created. I mean, down to like the spoon we eat our cereal with, but you don't think of a spoon as technology. But there was a time when we had to eat cereal from our hands. It was a hassle. Somebody had to come up with a fucking spoon.
Exactly. Open the box with your mouth. And it's just, totally. I know. No, totally. It's like, we take so many things granted when you consider all those things. Actually, they are, it took maybe 1,000 years to find the right form with the spoon. And probably will take maybe not as long, but quite a bit of time to find the right foot with AR. But basically, so we, in the context of this technology, then the other element comes, which is the science and research that we engage with different institutions or individuals to create those orchestrated sensory experiences, as you can call mixed reality. I think they all saying the same thing. And I'd like to start with the In the Eyes of the Animal, which we did in 2015. Actually, it's almost like a lifetime ago now, in terms of VR lifetime. But funny enough, it's still touring, which is fascinating. It's been to, I think, 70 different, biennials, festivals, conferences, and 25 countries or so, and still going on. But that was the turning point. We've been, engaging with arts and media in various forms, from large-scale projections to interactive installations. But one of the first tests we've been doing with Oculus DK2 was In the Eyes of the Animal, which gave us the whole, other direction, I suppose, the epiphany almost. You find the meaning of life. So, and throughout this process, I kind of stumbled upon a few things, and one of them was the shocking part. Quite individual level. I mean, this little test, and how many of those logos you can't name?
I can name all of them.
All of them.
I know them all.
Can you name how many of those plants you can name?
I could. Okay, the first one is an oak leaf. The second one, I have no idea. 4-leaf clover. The bottom right one is a maple leaf. Bottom left one, don't know. Bottom middle one, don't know. So like pretty bad. I got 3 out of 6.
Exactly, but that's okay because an average human can name 450 logos by heart. Can't name 5 plants or trees by looking at their leaves, and that is okay because it's the survival. We are living in urban environments, and those are not the main survival skills. But also, it exposes this crazy disconnection. And when we think about the climate issues, the Anthropocene in general, that's one of the reasons. We don't understand time. We don't understand. We don't have any engagement with it. And it's okay. I mean, we were born in a world where it's kind of set in a way that allowed us to grow without that connection. And I mean, this was my personal journey, and my partners as well. When we went to Grisdale Forest to do In the Eyes of the Animal, which wasn't called In the Eyes of the Animal, it was like the project. We realized actually we know nothing about the forest. You just look around, that's amazing. It's moss and tree, and what is this moss and what is this tree? What is this plant here? What makes this place unique? And then you realize all the other species living there, coming and going in different hours of the day. And that was the idea. So we thought, how those other species seeing the forest. This is the human eye that I can appreciate the greenery and the little path that was laid for me. But how do they see this forest? And that became the main idea, which led us to the research. And
I like that last leaf.
that was the little pun. It's like everyone knows that one. So, and we stumbled upon this term called Umwelt, and Umwelt means self-centered world, coined by Jacob von Uxküll. He's a biologist and single-handedly shaped the kind of trajectory of biology and botany to a degree in the turn of the century. And basically, the way he describes all those species sharing the same physical space, room, whatever, garden, forest, they have a completely different reality. It's not like in the way that you see, for instance, a tick lives 6 frames per second. We live 25, 30 frames per second. So for them, we are moving really, 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 really fast. And for us, they are moving really, 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 really slow. So, and like, what is the baseline reality if you're coming from a completely different physiological background? And that created the backbone of the project, where we went to Grisdale again and scanned the forest using architectural tools like this LiDAR scanner on the left. It gives you this incredibly detailed 3D representation of real world, basically, and it scans 700,000 points, less than 10 minutes. And next thing you know, you've got a really accurate, like sub-millimeter accurate representation of the world. And then we took that data and applied the learnings of how some of those species seeing and experiencing the world into this data, basically. And we built this basic narrative, starting as a midge, turning into a dragonfly that gets eaten by a frog, and that gets eaten by an owl. And when you think about it, this is the what is it called? The food chain. And we're supposed to go a little further till human, but then we ran out of money, and we stopped. We had to stop there. But that kind of, this is the human vision of the world, and you put the headset on in a forest, and that turns into this world. What you're seeing, obviously, we are using quite a heavy kind of artistic license, but mosquitoes see CO2. So what happens in a forest that is kind of in nighttime, they stop photosynthesizing and they consume 1/3 of the oxygen they created in the daytime in the evening. So there's a carbon dioxide plume going through the forest. So how does it feel, or how would it look if I was to be a mosquito flying through this forest? And and then you get eaten by a dragonfly. Dragonflies are incredible. They see 300 frames per second, and they see full spectrum of light.
Oh wow!
And yeah, it's incredible. And then you become a dragonfly and start flying through the forest. And
that was my favorite part of the whole experience, just because you could I know I mentioned this in the past when we had Barney on, but the experience was designed with a sub pack in mind, and the sound vibrations of the dragonfly's wings just worked so well. It really felt like you were buzzing around. It was quite cool.
Yeah, I mean that's really the important part, and one of the first time that we start exploring haptics and haptic feedback and how much it adds. Now, when I look back, without a sub pack or this rumble pack that gives you the wings or the feeling of wings, it would be 50% less. And we talk about in those multimodal or cross-modal multisensory experiences, we don't see the world through just our eyes and ears. We feel the humidity, we get the smell of it, we touch, and even the touch has 8 different receptors on your fingertips, so every touch is different, and it's stored in a different way to create your memories. So how could you stimulate as many senses as possible to create more profound memories for the ones who are experiencing your piece? So that became almost like another parallel research for us that we apply to all the projects and try different things each time.
Cool.
The funny thing, then you get eaten by a frog. A frog. Some of those frogs, the one on the left, Tungara frog, can see sound almost. They ribbit. The waves start propagating from the body, bounces off things, objects, and they come back and they feel through their body. So you are sitting on a pond and seeing like a frog, but also when they ribbit, that ribbiting is coming from the sub pack again. So you're feeling with your entire body, which looks like that. By the way, that was the outdoor installation when we did 2015.
Where did you get power? How did you get?
Oh my God,
it's
so powerful. It's a shame that you're running a generator somewhere in the back. It's like obviously, and it's like now luckily it's a little more common and easier to find biofossil generators, biofuel generators. That is like far less environmental impact. You're trying to show a new part of the environment, well, without damaging it, hopefully. So yeah, we had a generator.
Oh man, but isn't that so? Like, I mean, God, in our modern life, you can't take any action or any movement without having some negative consequence. It's like it's all about this interconnected web of bullshit that we just can't like disconnect from it. Unless you just go live in the woods naked with a spoon. Yeah, that's the only option.
Right. No, totally. I mean, even the spoon like depends on where it's coming. Unless if you carve the spoon from the wood that was fallen. Yes,
but some other little critter was going to use that wood, man. You can't even carve a wood spoon. Don't do that. Just use your hands.
No, you're right. No, it is totally true. I mean, it's pretty much impossible to live the 100% ethical life. But that said, just cutting down the meat means 50% of your carbon footprint and going into veganism, or a circular farming practice, or there are those incredible 0 mile, 2 mile principles that you only eat things that's growing within the 5 mile radius. Those are the ones that has the minimum impact, and we still need to feed ourselves. But I think there is a growing curiosity and kind of importance towards that people are looking for it, which is incredible. But I mean, I hope it's not too late. We just need to do even more. And individual responsibility is only a fraction of what's going on and how we can stop it. I suppose there's a bigger picture and more like policy level changes that we need, like crazy collective changes.
Yeah. Well, and just like you're such an inspiration. I don't know if people on the line know this, but Ersin only eats food that's grown in his apartment. He actually never leaves his apartment either. Like all those plants that we saw at the beginning of this, that's all he subsists on. It's pretty remarkable.
I'm sorry, it's not true, but I wish that was true. I was genuinely looking for a self-rotating garden today.
Oh, yeah.
That you can put on your table, like it's a tabletop garden that you can grow multiple vegetables inside.
Actually,
not just yet.
Interesting aside, when I was before I started Kaleidoscope, I was looking for like what next startup I was going to do, and one of the things that we did a deep dive on was indoor gardening. I think it's such a fascinating thing, automated gardening in general. You know, how can somebody grow their own food with like outputting any real energy into it? Fascinating topic.
No, totally.
But keep going.
Yeah. So this is the frog, you know, you sitting as a frog and seeing the world on and off. Their vision is really bad, by the way, although they can see sound or they can feel sound through their entire body,
beautiful.
Which they use like a membrane. And then that gets eaten by an owl. Owl has this incredible binocular vision. They can read newspaper from 100 meters. So it's like the other side of football pitch. And because of the conical kind of eye shape, their peripheral vision is really bad, but the central vision is just, you know, extremely good. So we took that as a starting point and, you know, translated that point cloud data into something wherever you look, the central vision gets focused and everything else is far more abstracted. Obviously, we don't know whether their brain is correcting that, but, you know, based on looking into the human physiology of the eyeball and what we see and how we see, and then kind of extrapolating that information to owls, and so there's a level of speculation there, basically, on both scientific and our works level, and that was it, basically. So you fly as an owl, and then you land on the land, and we designed those helmets, which allowed us to one of the purpose of it was to actually protect the kit. It rains every day. So the other purpose was this. This was a big thing that time. It was hilarious. I mean, you know, the VR, it doesn't communicate what's going on inside. It only shows you the reactions. And I like that voyeurism. But, you know, to a degree, then how do we actually take control over their appearance? And then, you know, in a forest setting, that's fascinating because they turn into those animated objects with the helmets. But for indoors, we are kind of going another extra mile to create an environment that communicates what's going on in the headset to the viewer from outside. Here we go. You can sit down and go into an animal perspective. We want to do something about dogs as well.
Putting a dog in VR?
No, other way around. Putting you in the dog's eye, probably. So I think I'm going to jump. But by the way, please do ask me anything if you like in between. Happy to stop and kind of elaborate further.
Yeah, I'm watching the chat log, so if anyone has anything to say, just throw it in there. And also happy to promote anyone to a speaker if you want to actually jump in with a question with your face.
Amazing, excellent. So and in the process of making, you know, in the eyes of the animal, and then we start getting some inquiries whether we want to put this in a full dome or on a large kind of installation. Installation is something that we've been doing for a long time, but the intention of the work was, you know, to be experienced in a headset. But then you realize actually it's possible, and because you have to think about and design everything for 360, you can, you know, take that 360 world that is designed from, you know, to be seen from every angle and turn into an installation similar to that, which Beautiful. Was the closest thing to a headset for a collective experience. So because it fills your entire peripheral vision. It like if there is a immersimeter, let's say, if there is such thing, the VR would be the one end, and probably flat screen of your phone is the other end. This is sitting right next to VR, the closest thing to me in terms of immersion. And you can even get motion sickness by standing in this room if the camera is moving too fast. But it's allowing us to understand the mechanics of, you know, the animation world building and creating those 360 environments, and then testing them out in different formats, which led us to first design everything in 360, or as if they will be seen from all angles and from every point, and then dialing down to a screen if it's a normal installation. This is what I mean with VR as the master medium. So you design for VR, but you know, it doesn't necessarily to be the end goal or the final the exhibit doesn't necessarily to be VR itself. And we explored a few different versions in different scales to kind of understand how it works. And it's interesting. Again, this is probably one notch less than the one before in terms of immersion meter. You can talk to each other, you know, a group of 100 people can stand and explore and experience, but it's not as intimate as you would expect. Well, probably you wouldn't expect. It's not as intimate as VR, obviously. So while we were exploring that, we also kind of start looking into deep time and understanding trees. And, you know, you look at them, they're just gracefully standing there for not just 100 years, but thousands of years. And a friend of ours posted something about sequoias in the process of making that. And I was like, whoa, they are incredible. That was the first time we went to California to visit Sequoia National Park. Have you been to there?
Yeah. I mean, I used to live in San Francisco, and my mother-in-law and father-in-law had a house that was right on the Oregon-California border, and there's just amazing redwood trees there that we'd go spend the holidays in. But yeah, I've been to Sequoia too. It's gorgeous.
They are. And I mean, I think it's one of the most humbling experiences I've ever had in my life. Just standing face to face with one of those, you know, the beautiful creatures. You know, some of them are 3,500 years old. Something that's been, you know, gracefully standing there for that long. And, you know, the amount of knowledge it gathers by just standing there is phenomenal. And everything we know about our, you know, current history or this, you know, last 3,000 years, it's been there. Like, you know, all historic events that we were taught for years, while they were happening, this was standing there. So, and trying to understand that, what does it mean to embrace or become a tree and slow yourself down and kind of dial into tree time. You know, and that kind of led us to that journey of, okay, how does it feel to be a single drop of water and go through this journey in a tree that is almost 90 meters, well, 300 feet tall. Normally, sequoias suck that water from roots to canopy in like 20 days for a kind of average adult sequoia tree. So we kind of sped that journey up a bit to 7 minutes, and again follow the same principle of scanning and starting with the scanning, so you have the real asset, and then working with Salford University and Natural History Museum to understand the inner workings of those trees. They are still mystery. I mean, there is this gravity barrier, and it is a problem when it comes to plumbing, for instance. You know, beyond a certain height, you have to take gravity into consideration and design all your valving and valve systems and everything and piping accordingly. And they can't understand how Sequoia is doing that so successfully. You know, sucking all that water up to 300 feet. So it was really important for us to work with them and try to understand. And we build all those kind of inner systems. And, you know, in the journey that you're learning so much, that I probably learned more from those two projects than my entire education, like biology and botany. So, and that's the part, like I really enjoy doing those talks because you don't often get to even tell this part, but there is this, the whole kind of backbone of the narrative, which I enjoy.
I love how deep you guys go with your research and your because the ideas you come up with are so bizarre, but they're this it's like it's like there's this mountain of research and then you just wipe it all away and have this experience that doesn't, you know, doesn't feel academic or anything. It's this really amazing organic outshoot of that deep research that gets you to these spectacular but unexpected places. Like if you're doing it like in like a, you know, I mean, I think the way most people do these projects is they, you know, they kind of like pitch a couple ideas and they just go make it, and it kind of feels a little obvious. And your stuff never feels obvious, and I think it's because you do so much research.
Well, thanks. It's no, I mean, I think like we all value the learning within this part more so than anything else, and we obviously none of those are scientific visualizations. So we crank the abstraction or artistic license style up to a level that is not lie, but it's kind of grounded in the science. So you find this kind of happy place in between. The funny fact, so sequoias, but the trees, the valve system inside are like, they have, you know, it goes for a meter and then it does a 90-degree cut. And then again, it looks like a square wave, basically, the way it's kind of constructed. But when we first learned that, we tried to replicate and create those sapwood channels based on that. Battery. Sapwood channels based on that. And what happened was it looked static and it looked like digital. So we had to dial back to something we think more organic, more so than what is scientific. It's like quite interesting. You know, you end up with those kind of dilemmas. Anyway, but, I'm going to quickly whiz through the other bits. I mentioned briefly the research around the, you know, haptics and tactilities in other parts that, you know, we touch things and our touch receptors are incredibly sensitive to all sorts of different surfaces, and it leaves a really profound memory when it comes to, you know, memorizing a moment of reality. So one of the most kind of memorable experience with sequoias was their bark is one of the thickest in terms of how deep they go, but it's one of the softest. So it's one of those best trees to hug, basically. So how do we create, you know, that feeling elsewhere? How do we create and help to embrace or engage with the content itself by kind of serving into multiple senses? And this is how we build it. We build this like multi-layered sponge, almost a meter deep, based on one of those shapes where we aligned virtual tree to this physical part. So what you're seeing is kind of corresponding to what you're touching, not like 100%, but your brain kind of compensates most of it. And then it ended up looking like this in the first glance. It's something that you can hug, but also you can put your head inside. So you can do something that you couldn't do in real life, like putting your head through the physical tree. And this is an interesting one. You know, how do you build the multisensory narratives? Because you know, when you're creating, you know, moving image, you can create a storyboard and animatic, and they become the goalposts. So you understand where you are heading towards, and it mostly makes sense. We have a vocabulary around it. Everyone understands what a storyboard, you know, do, and you put a few arrows, it tells the whole story. But when it comes to scent, for instance, if you go, I want this scent to be acknowledged or triggered in this part, then you need to look into the scent itself in a molecular level to understand how long does it take for it to be sensed by humans. And that brings a whole other set of problems, but incredible challenges at the same time, because you realize you need to release the sound 15 seconds before to get the right note, you know, being sensed in the right moment of the sound and the visuals.
And this would be a good time to interject that they had a sense, like a smell box attached to the front of the headset for Tree Hugger that would spray you with little scents. Oh, perfect there. It's so stupid looking, but I love it.
I know. Yeah, it's crazy. We work with these guys, Sensible Tech. It's a startup from San Francisco, I think now, and partially Caltech. And the device they build, this tiny device, can deploy up to, I think, 10 or 15 different scents. You know, frame accurate deployment and delivering to your nose. But again, the way we kind of perceive scent in real world is just this incredibly complex mechanism. And actually, we don't know exactly what's going on. Like literally, there is no agreement upon how we smell the world through our nose. There are like quantum theories around it. Anyway, so through this process, we realize like what would be the top line narrative that you try to engage with and align your sound and visual and scent and haptics to it. And then we ended up with the simplest one, the emotional narrative. You know, what do you want them to feel in that particular moment? And in order to get there, you can decide on the color palette, you can decide on the sound palette, you can decide on the scent, because some molecules and ingredients for the scent can induce fear more so than the others, while the others are more associated with the happiness. So the best way we found is this creating emotional arc and drawing a parallel from that to different parts, which is the most interesting turn in my career, because, you know, I'm coming from image making background with visual communication design, and the visuals or the sound has always been the leading factor. And you often look at the emotions very at the end, like you have a sense of how it feels to look at that thing, but it's never been the starting point. So changing that order gave a whole other perspective that we are still kind of exploring, and I found that part quite fascinating in that journey.
Super cool. Yeah, super cool.
How are we doing with the time? We good? Oh, we got time.
Good. Yeah, we're good. We're good. Keep going, man.
Excellent. So, and you know, then when we were doing Tree Hugger, we realized it could be incredible that, you know, you breathe thousands of breaths every day, and every single breath you take in has 20 billion atoms darting inside with the speed of sound, and we are yet to acknowledge. And every other breath you take coming from oceans, and the other one is coming from the trees and grass. There's this, you know, really obvious narrative there, really obvious connection that we all know from the age of, I don't know, 7 probably, down to all the details. So we wanted to kind of focus on that and create an experience again around tree or trees, but just to show that significant codependence through breath. And again, it's something we, you know, taking granted. And this is how we live in an ocean of air. End of last year, it was at Saatchi for almost 6 months, 5.5 months, intended to be 6 weeks. And we were so happy to receive an incredible kind of interest and extended twice. So people wanted to, well, they want to see their breath, basically. So you put a headset, there's a custom sensor sitting on your nostrils again, but this time we are tracking your breathing, looking into the kind of temperature change around that area to understand how much intake and outtake happening. And and you can, see each other's breath. You can play with it, and you can share that breath with the trees. You exhale, it gets sucked by the plants and trees. They produce oxygen. It comes to you again, and people start playing with their breath. We are running this really interesting development in the process was incorporating a fluid simulation. So combine this with the hand tracking, finger tracking. You can literally exhale carbon dioxide and start playing with your own breath, and you can waft that. You can waft that to the other person next to you. So there were those funny moments where two strangers, 6 people going together, by the way, like 12 in total, in 6 groups of 6, going together to this journey, and they can see each other's breath. And those 2 strangers kind of coming together and conscious of each other. They have this relatively abstract avatar that consists of blood circulation and breath. The most basic things that unifies all of us. And they start pushing their breath to each other, and then next thing you know, they became friends in this virtual world, sharing a breath with each other, playing through their breath, and going through the canopy together. We tested the system quite thoroughly. This is hopefully the next one, like roller disco around the sequoia, or like on the canopy. Let's see if we can get approval. But it was fun. It definitely works, by the way. I mean, as soon as you can skate, and if it's safe, it's really fun. Skate in VR.
Oh man, everything in VR. It's yeah. Have you gone underwater in VR, by the way? You guys need to try it if you haven't.
No, you mean like literally underwater wearing a headset?
Yeah.
With a headset.
Yeah, there's a company called Ballast that makes an underwater headset. It's pretty cool. I think you guys should look into it.
Yeah, I'm really curious. It would be really good to do something with space underwater.
Yeah,
so
because you get this great floating sense. Yeah, totally. 100%.
Amazing.
This is the only project of yours I haven't had a chance to do. I really regret that I didn't just fly up to London to see it.
We are currently talking to a few different institutions and looking for other partners in the States, and we are hoping to bring it to you next year.
Oh, good. Okay, so great. I'm then I have no regrets.
Yeah, you'll see it for sure. These are hilarious. So this is funny. What I love about a few things. The oldest visitor we've ever had, this woman on wheelchair, I think Judy. She was 92 years old, and it was her first VR experience. We were so proud. The family on the right came for the grandfather's birthday. This is the 3 generations together. They held hands and went up the tree together and shared that breath. It was incredible.
That's amazing. I love that story.
It's just it fills my heart with joy, really, because I mean, it's funny because your usual kind of new media consumer, cultural consumer, ranging from these like 20s to end of 40s, and that's the bracket that you often encounter in festivals, conferences, but the South G experience for us, the whole exhibition there, gave us access to this incredible other kind of part of the society that we wouldn't dream of, and it's so rewarding to see this. And the one on the left, the bottom left, this is a couple. They are mid-70s. They are going through that tree together, and again sharing a breath. They've been sharing a breath for last 40 years, and now they are seeing that breath that they are sharing together. There's a family sitting together again there. So I really like that part of what we do now more so than anything else. It's because it's like you're touching real humans and kind of like you have that real engagement, and it's kind of making us ask different questions for what we do and how we create those experiences.
Well, and what you guys are branching into, because there's a couple of projects that we've talked to you intimately about that you're doing next. You're thinking about the general public in a way that goes beyond what you normally reach at a festival, right? And when you have something that runs for almost 6 months, I mean, you have thousands of people that go through, and you really do have to think of a more general audience. And, I feel like that's a really healthy process for everyone to go through, because if this is going to become an art form that has a big impact, it needs to reach those broader audiences.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. And, creating those positive kind of encounters for people who are not really seeking any new technologies around them. And then it sets an example. And also it makes you understand, what is viable and what are those things that you need to consider. Accessibility is one of them, for instance.
Yeah.
That became more and more evident. And this is, 5 to 7% of pretty much every population. There is one way or another less able. And how do you embrace that and at least offer something up in a world where pretty much visual domination? So how do you create those opportunities in your work and be more inclusive? So it's meeting up or somehow encountering broader audiences, also forming our opinion how we should create work for future.
Yeah.
And this is I think I'm gonna land on this. This is how do we conceive something so much smaller than ourselves, like mycelium, this 2-micron thick incredible network that connects all the trees and plants to each other, and they form this collective kind of intelligence under every forest, every piece of land, to maintain and farm and terraform almost the planet. So what is it like to be part of it? Because when you die, you become part of it. And it's like, what is it like to embody something far larger than yourself? So this is another occupation for the next year. And we've got lots of projects. This is just one part of it. Obviously, our sweet dreams. This is an exploration towards our death to desire that you've seen at Sundance is kind of going on to the second phase of fundraising and researching and finding new types of tracking to engage with audience that combines taste and processional VR and a narrative, kind of a sugar-coated climate messaging. So loads going on.
So anybody on the line, now's the time to start thinking about questions, because we are getting towards the end of our hour. And dude, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. I love that we got this really great overview of your work. And a sense of where you're headed next as a studio. I'm curious, I sort of always try to end these talks. Is there anything else in the presentation, or should I make you big again?
No, yeah, that's it. I think.
Let's make us big.
I'll leave this as the last message.
Oh, I closed it. Shit. Was there another message you were gonna?
It's all right. I can tell. Wait.
Tell me the last message then that you were gonna leave us with.
It was more about the current climate crisis and how do we engage with it and why we have to engage with it. It's the almost all our big teacher Gustav Metzger is saying. His quote. This is from 90s now. The art, architecture, and design world needs to take a stand against the ongoing erasure of species, even where there is a little chance of ultimate success. It is our privilege and our duty to be at the forefront of the struggle. There is no choice but to follow the path of ethics into aesthetics. That was the last thing I wanted to say.
I think that's a beautiful sentiment, and it actually dovetails nicely with Tiffany's question in the chat log. Stunning work. I work for an environmental film XR Fest, Earth X Film. Wondering if you have aligned with any eco orgs or interested in aligning.
definitely interested in aligning. We've been talking to various organizations. We have engaged with Greenpeace in the past, and we've been working with some of the research institutes, but always open to do more, for sure.
And this might be a good way. How can Tiffany get in touch with you if she wants to tell you more about film or Earth X film?
Info at Marshmallow Laser Feast, and if you put my name on the subject, it'll come to me.
It'll come to you. Okay. Here, I'll throw that in the chat log so everyone can just copy and paste it. So where I like Laser Feast, did I get that right? I always have questions about that word marshmallow. Did I get it right? Read it.
Marshmallow Laser Feast. Yes.
Awesome.
Excellent.
I doesn't matter what else I do today, I have succeeded.
Patrick asked a question about Zenko 3D engine.
Oh, okay. Jump in.
Excellent question. I miss parts of the technological development that's going kind of creating all those systems. Well, we've been working with VVVV, 4 Vs. It started in Berlin and now spread across, and many people working. It's a node-based multi-purpose tool that you can do pretty much anything with. And we've created in the Eyes of the Animal, Tree Hugger, and various other shows and real-time experiences with that environment. So we've got a really nice kind of base of artists, designers, programmers that we engage with and work with on various projects. So Zenko was integrated. Well, Zenko appointed to be integrated into the next generation of VVVV, and Ocean of Air is the first project that we put those two things together. So we got the guys who built the VVV, and they came on board. They were planning to kind of engage with Zenko anyway, and then now there's this relatively modern super modern architecture in a game engine combined with node-based environment with our community kind of come together. That was one of the main reasons. But beyond that, I think what we are doing with particles and point cloud information, it is a struggle to try to create anything similar in Unity or Unreal. I've seen different modules, like you've got really interesting plugins to show point clouds, but then the moment you try to move them or animate them, it all fails. So it's more coming from an aesthetic and the community point of view than anything else. I hope that's good enough.
It's fascinating how much the tools we use dictate the end results. Your projects look and feel like nothing else in VR, and it's partly, I think, largely because you're using tools that are less common. Most people, 90% of people use Unity. 9% use Unreal, and then 1% use sort of exotic stuff like y'all use. But another great reason why your work is so fascinating. So my last question for you is what are you excited about? What gets you excited about in VR? What do you see coming down the pipeline for the industry that makes you hopeful or optimistic or just jazzed to be still in the immersive space?
Sure. Beyond the daily geek outs with the lighter, better headsets, as a thing, it's finding its foot in the public domain. With when you encounter people, I've tried VR in the context of education, in the context of real estate. And this is a random person in the street, which is fascinating because now is the time that we start categorizing and seeing this. Phones are invisible, apps are the things. So that is happening now. The VR itself becoming invisible, but the quality of that real estate app will become the thing. And same goes for the experiences that we are doing. And we won't be talking about, I mean, I often think about the video art. You know, LG wasn't part of the conversation in any part, or, you know, Sony. It's because that was the TV they were building, and no one even considered what that TV was. What content went into it was the thing. So, and that will probably untangle most of the stuff, and, you know, allow us to think and talk about the content and the experiences, which will hopefully kind of enrich and go beyond our imagination. So that's the best part on a holistic level. Yeah, I think that's one main thing.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time so much. Anybody have any last minute questions before we let Ersin go? Speak now or just email him, I guess. I was going to say forever hold your peace, but you know, you can, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, when am I going to see you next? Am I going to see you at Oculus Connect?
I don't think so.
Will I see you
I'll see you in London.
In London. Okay, we'll see you in London.
Yeah.
All right.
If not, probably Sundance.
Okay, Sundance then, or London. Cheers.
Yeah. Excellent.
Bye, everybody. See you tomorrow.
Thank you.